Stop me if you've heard this before. It was pathetic. Again, except this time maybe there's more on the offensive side of the plate. Let's break down a death knell for the Bengals in Pittsburgh.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network out there. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Bengals your first listen, and all of you who make Locked On Bengals part of your everyday routine, even in this rough season. He's James Rapien. I'm Jake Liscow. We've got you covered here on Locked On Bengals, and we have since 2016, since this show launched, making it your best spot on the internet for all things Bengals, even in, like I said, down seasons like this one that, for all intents and purposes, may have come to an end in Pittsburgh in a week that Joe Burrow returns to practice. And there's an opportunity in front of this team to get back into the thick of things in the AFC North, to give themselves a shot, to show that they can find ways to find solutions over the bye week. They really fall flat on their face in Pittsburgh, James, and that's what we have to discuss today, is a game that could effectively end their season as the Bengals fall to 3-7 with the 9-2 Patriots coming to town next week.
Well, it does. It's what it does. They're not making the playoffs. You can book your Latin vacation. I don't know why I said Latin, wherever, Spain, wherever you want to go overseas. That's just the last time I remember is you going overseas when you went on vacation, Jake. But yeah, you can book that for mid-January if you want. We can plan that because that's what's happening. The Bengals are a bad football team. That's what bad football teams look like. I've watched plenty of them during my 34 years in existence here in Cincinnati. And this is what bad Bengals football teams look like, where it's like, well, they're hanging around, or well, no, they're 1-7 in their past 8 games. Gotta have it. Everyone in the building said it was a must win. You had the broadcast talking about how their Saturday night meeting was all about what? How they had to get this win. This is how it would stack up. This is the path. You have Joe Burrow coming back, all of these things, and they do that. They score 1 touchdown. They never have the lead. It never feels like they're in control, even if they are in the game. And I think there's a big difference between the two. It never feels like they're the aggressor, even though the score was a 1-possession game at times, right? And Zach Taylor after the game, that's not indicative. The score's not indicative. Well, the 27-12 score was certainly indicative of it. Maybe not the final touchdown, but it was definitely
it's indicative enough, man. That's a crazy quote. That is terrible optics from Zach. I'll say that.
For sure, because they were dominated.
Yeah.
Like, it never felt like they were the better team, ever. Never, ever, never, ever during that game. Now, when they went back and they scored on their opening drive, it was like, oh, well, they're in it. We'll see. And then the defense gets some stops, and then the offense forgets how to offense. This offense that everyone thought was just going to be superhuman, leave Joe Burrow aside, they're just going to be great forever. Well, they scored 12 points today. And so, by the way, I think a lot of that is on Zach. You better have some answers when they take away Jamar Chase, because I could have told you all week long that Jalen Ramsey's going to come out and want to go after Jamar, and so is Joey Porter Jr. And this secondary, they got embarrassed on national TV a month ago. Of course they're going to want to come out and make sure that Jamar doesn't beat them. So there's so many things that we can peel back, and we're not going to get them all into one show. But they're a bad football team, and that's how it looks. That doesn't mean they don't have some talented players, but when their best player isn't superhuman, they can't score, or they don't score. And in their defense, I still don't know if they can tackle you. And they're certainly afraid to tackle anyone above 6'5", apparently.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to tackle a 300-pound tight end who catches a check down on 3rd and 17.
It's impossible. Like, how does that happen? I've never seen that happen. Other teams don't deal with this. How do you tackle Darnell Washington? Well, tackle him. It's your job. That's how. It's the slowest guy on the field. anyways.
There's a lot in this one to unpack. Like you said, there's going to be ramifications, obviously, that we talk about for the rest of the week and for the rest of the season as we try to figure out the things that are worth watching for the rest of the season, because we're going to continue to watch this team. We're going to continue to cover them. And so that's our job, is to tell you the things that are important for this team down the stretch. And that's what we will do the rest of the season. But in this game, one of the things that felt frustrating to me, James, is it was kind of exactly what we thought in a couple of ways. One, we talked this week about how the Steelers had changed their defense because of what the Bengals did to them. We talked about the kind of blueprint that's out there. Not that it's worked, but the idea that if you can double Jamar and T, and you cloud or bracket those guys, or you give them true double doubles, and you say, okay, Andre Yosavash, okay, Chase Brown, okay, Noah Fant, okay, Drew Sample, who's invisible to Joe Flacco as he is to Joe Burrow, you guys beat us in the passing game. And they didn't. Yosavash did a little bit early, and then after that, there weren't answers for Joe Flacco when the pressure ramped up a little bit. The offensive line didn't play as well in this game. Orlando Brown really struggled on the left side against Nick Herbig. Jalen Rivers really struggled on the right side before he left with an injury late in this game. Marius Mims had his share of issues with TJ Watt, who once again batted 2 passes and had a roughing the passer call that really changed the game. I do think that Joe Flacco looked significantly worse, and maybe he would have anyway, but correlation anyway looked worse after taking that hit from TJ Watt. So we knew that the Steelers were going to try to take away these top weapons for the Bengals, and it was going to be a situation where Joe Flacco was going to have to win when his guys didn't uncover quickly and get open quickly. You couldn't go to that quick game, hit Jamar quick, hit T down the sideline quick, whatever it was going to be. They needed somebody else to step up. Didn't get enough of that early. Chase Brown finishes the game with 127 or so scrimmage yards. I think it was 127, 99, and 28, and had one explosive run, but it wasn't consistent enough for them. They didn't get anything from the backs behind them. Kendall Milton getting run ahead of Taj Brooks, which is kind of crazy in this game. The practice squad call up at running back ahead of the 6th-round pick, who's on the 53-man roster. But
was he just on the field for more snaps? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So he was on the field before Brooks. He got a carry before Brooks, and he had more carries than Brooks. I didn't see the final snap count. I might still have it up somewhere, and I can check that. But just an aside, point that I'm trying to make here is when the defense was getting stops early, and one of the reasons it's so frustrating is because Aaron Rodgers gave you those chances. Like the Pittsburgh worries that Aaron Rodgers was falling off a cliff and that he maybe just didn't have it, did kind of come true in this game, and they couldn't take advantage because the offense fell off its own cliff. And as we're saying, like really came back down to earth, and some of those cracks that they were showing really showed up.
Yeah, that's when you needed to be prepared for this one, for the offense to come back a little bit, but 2, have some kind of answer. And it feels like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we'll feel differently in another day, the most creative thing they did was go wildcat with Chase Brown in a situation where I hate doing that.
Hated that.
Because
Hated that.
guess the one thing the Steelers are great at isn't their secondary, regardless. Joey Porter Jr. is not a great corner. Jalen Ramsey is not great anymore. But that defensive front's great. And so to say, hey, we're going to take the ball out of Joe Flacco's hands, we're going to put him at receiver, and our offensive line is going to beat your defensive front for a yard, and we're going to do it right now. Like, a lot of people would be like, yeah, football. I'm like, probably dumb. Probably not the smartest thing to do. That's not where you win. And
Wildcat just doesn't work anymore, man. It just I hated that play call. I didn't mind the decision to go hate play call.
Me too. Hated it. And so those are the type of moments. Yeah, I love the idea because it felt like it was going to be a shootout at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You go up 8-7. You feel like you get a little momentum. You only need to go one. Like, I get it. Chase Brown, by the way, wasn't throwing that at all. Like, I know some have said, oh, he should have thrown it. It's like, that wasn't part of it. Maybe one day, but it was not it. But it's frustrating because I think the offense probably knew they were going to have to get to 30, take care of the ball and get to 30. That's probably where they were at. And they scored 1 touchdown. And that's just, it's not going to get it done. This defense isn't, unless you get handed 3 turnovers and 2 of them go for scores, that's just not going to work on offense.
Well, they gave up 2 touchdowns, which, game's over by the time the second one comes around. But the defense, honestly, for all of the flack we've given them, and rightly so, in the way they played in the second half, is a continuation of this. They could not get a stop on the Bengals. Continued to need it in the second half when Mason Rudolph entered the game. I joked at the time that it might not be a downgrade, and it wasn't a downgrade. Aaron Rodgers was not playing well. The offense for the Steelers got better when Mason Rudolph entered the game. That cannot happen. But the defense early in this game did give the Bengals some chances. There are a few performances that I do want to highlight on that side of the ball, but it's another example of complementary football just not existing for this team as we continue the conversation as the Bengals season effectively ends in Pittsburgh coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. You know what Mint Mobile needs? A no missed tackles policy for the Bengals. And to put that at Paycor Stadium, Mint makes it simple. All plans come with our high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can bring your own phone and keep your same number, your same contacts. So it's simple to make the switch to Mint. And I get it. You want quality service. Mint has it, and it's going to save you money. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
The defense did not finish this game well. But at one point, there were like 6 straight punts early in this game, which is what happens when your offense doesn't capitalize. With the Steelers, after scoring an opening drive touchdown, went punt, 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 field goal aided by like 3 defensive penalties that were automatic first downs. So they didn't finish a half great. But those 3 punts in the first half, and one of them coming after a very questionable spot on a 4th down conversion granted to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was wild to me in the moment and still is.
That
the offense
was
really
a
didn't
huge,
take advantage.
They didn't. That was a huge moment, though. It was.
Yeah.
For an offense that stunk, if you give them the ball in the Steelers 38 and that kind of momentum, well, maybe Jamar does make a play. Maybe they do find a way to magically scheme him open and get him open when the Steelers are trying to take him away, or it's T, or maybe it's Noah Fant over the middle, or Chase Brown breaks one and scores. And just like that, the game feels much different. So I did think that was a huge moment. You're right. The spot was ridiculous. I don't know what they were seeing. The review shouldn't have had to have a review like that they shouldn't have had to challenge that. So just ridiculous, but doesn't change the point. You're right. The defense forced 3 straight punts, gave this offense a chance to seize the moment on the road. And they did that. The last time we've seen the defense do that was against the Steelers at the end of the first half a month ago, when they forced a couple of turnovers, and the offense, what did they do? They did take advantage of it. They did score points. They did put pressure on Pittsburgh, and the Bengals didn't. They could not get going on offense, and that's when I was like, all right, how is this going to work? Like, if this isn't the Jamar day, and it didn't really feel like the Jamar day, even early on. All right, was it going to be T? Well, they certainly don't want to get beat by T again. They just gave up a 28-yard touchdown to him. Andre Yosefovich on their opening drive had 2 of those 3rd down conversions over the middle. I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's Yoshi time. And it was just no time for nobody. And that's painful, because that's really, when you look at the game, that's when you got to go get points. And if you get points there, then maybe it flips it a little bit. Not that you weren't in it, not that you didn't have other opportunities, but that stretch where you force 3 straight punts and you don't get anything, painful.
And Miles Murphy had a really good game, which is maybe crazy for some people to hear.
I noticed him multiple times, even in the first drive of the game when they gave up the touchdown.
Compressed the pocket multiple times, including on that first drive of the game, was making things uncomfortable for Aaron Rodgers, was part of the reason that Rodgers was misfiring on some of those throws. And I don't think Rodgers was good in this game, even when he wasn't pressured. But when Rodgers was in the game, the Bengals were getting pressure to him consistently. And at one point I looked, and he had been pressured on like 40% of his dropbacks or so, according to PFF live charting. That finished at 60% of Rodgers dropbacks where he was pressured. And that's all obviously early in the game. The problem becomes when Mason Rudolph enters the game, the Bengals only get home on 12% of his dropbacks, and Mason Rudolph's throwing the ball on average less than 3 yards downfield. And despite throwing the ball on average less than 3 yards downfield and converting checkdowns into 3rd and 17 conversions, 3rd and 10 conversion, 3rd and 10 conversion, the leading receivers in this game for both teams were Kenneth Gainwell and Darnell Washington. And this is a game that features T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and what Chase Brown has done lately. And you could even throw some of the Steelers guys into the mix with DK Metcalf. But the tale of two halves, really an issue. The defense was more of who they were in the second half. Barrett Carter had issues throughout this game again. But I did want to credit at least Myles Murphy. And I thought Joseph Ossai at times was showing a little bit more in this game when in the first half when Aaron Rodgers was in the game. The Bengals were getting consistent pressure home. The penalties were not great penalties. Ossai hits Rodgers in the head. Murphy falls into his butt. And that's a questionable call perhaps, but
don't do it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Avoidable.
Yeah.
Avoidable plays. There were some bright spots, and that's what sucks. That's what sucks about being 3-7. Right? If they had handled business against even the Jets, then it feels a little different because we can look at the bright spots and you'd be like, all right, well, there's next week. And well, there will be a next week and the sun will come up tomorrow and all of those good things. They're 3-7.
Yeah.
Like it's painful. And the thing that's frustrating for me about this defense, they invested so much at linebacker. I think they have the worst linebackers in the NFL by like a large margin. I think Barrett Carter was what's worse than awful. You know more words than I do, Jake. Do it. Describe Barrett Carter today.
How about despicable?
Fine with me. Despicable. Like Pat Fryermuth got your ankles.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like what do you do? Kenneth Gainwell looked like prime Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, he just jogs
flat.
out there. Just jogs out there. You kidding
nothing
me?
Fancy.
No. Yeah. And so there were
bad.
some bright spots, and I'm glad you hit on them. But man, oh man, I put Myles Murphy at linebacker too, because he's going to react the same way Barrett would. It's unbelievable. He's bigger.
The inability to get guys on the ground in this game for the guys that have been unable to get guys on the ground throughout the season continued. Barrett Carter missing a bunch of tackles. Geno Stone missing a bunch of tackles. Oren Burks, who played a little bit more this week. Well, unfortunately, he's also missing tackles. Josh Newton missing tackles out there. Bit of a redemption game for Jordan Battle in the tackling department, at least. He did miss a couple snaps. He left with injury for a brief moment in the game, but I thought it was a better game for Jordan Battle, especially as a tackler. Demetrius Knight, I thought also in a reduced role looked a little bit better, and we'll see if that can persist for him. But the bottom line is when you have Aaron Rodgers kind of reeling in the first half, and then Mason Rudolph enters the game, and I can say unironically and like only halfway joking, like Rodgers isn't playing great. This might not be a downgrade. That's probably bad news. And when Mason Rudolph can go out there and they can start handing the ball off a bunch, running screens, going play action, and then you have no answers. Like I said, Mason Rudolph, we have him at 8.1 yards per attempt on an average depth of target of 2.9. That's a whole lot of missed tackles and yards after catch. And that includes the 3rd and 17, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 10 conversions on checkdowns, which
impossible.
is, the defense reverted to form in the second half, which is like, what can you even say after a game like this other than how you started, which is to say that they're not a good team. And at 3-7, you have to accept that this is who they are.
It should be impossible for those third down conversions. Like, you stumble into that if you take control in Madden, the computer will stumble into a tackle on one of those checkdowns, like to force you to punt. Like, even if you put the controller down on defense, computer will get you a tackle. It's wild. And I do think that there were a few different turning points or potential turning points that the Bengals didn't take advantage of that could have been major turning points. And I want to mention a few. I just ripped the linebackers, and it's not just Barrett Carter, by the way. I mean, Oren Burks tackle Kenneth Gainwell on the 2. Demetrius Knight. You noticed Demetrius Knight out there?
I thought he was a little bit better today. Yeah, I did. I did think he was a little bit better today, and we'll see if that continues.
We'll see. He certainly wasn't the worst of the group, which there you go. There's a little positivity. But there's a couple turning points that are potential turning points I want to get to. And then I got to talk about our guy Gino, because I don't know what the hell he was doing. We'll do that coming up next. The NBA is back, and if you don't want to focus on the NFL season right now, well, FanDuel is going to spice up the NBA. I watched Steph Curry just go nuclear the other day on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs, and that's the beauty of the NBA. The Spurs were in control of that game, and then Steph Curry said, "No, I'm going to drop 49, and I'm going to score a bunch of points, and I'm going to lead my team to a win." And that's the fun part about FanDuel. If you bet on the NBA, let's say you missed the start of the game, that's all right. FanDuel has live bets from everything on who's going to score next, fourth quarter comebacks, same game parlays, live same game parlays after you missed the tip. Doesn't matter. They have it all there for you. And that's why they're America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do is head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. Again, that's FanDuel.com. The official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Jake, let's get to Gino. Let's start with Gino. I was going to get to the turning points, but Gino, real quick. You ever seen someone that doesn't want to tackle as much as him?
I get that you're giving up 100 pounds in that matchup with Arnold Washington, but that was going to be my next set of words. Like, that's your job, man. That's your job.
Push him out of bounds. He's so light on his feet that you have to no, like he's on the sideline. So the first Darnell Washington one is the one that infuriates me the most. When he stiff arms Barrett Carter, I would much rather be Barrett Carter on that play than Gino, because it looks like Gino's like, please don't make me a highlight. Please don't make me a highlight. I mean, come on, man. And then it sets DJ up for a nightmare. But guess what? DJ at least stood up to him. You get thrown, who cares? As long as you get him out of bounds, and he did. So, Gino, you're killing me. I think people know that. I don't know why you would. I really do. At this point, I do not know why you would stick with him, because you need someone that can tackle. Like, that's it. And they don't have it.
Yeah. You wanted to get some turning points as well, or potential turning points that did not turning point, I guess.
Well, you were talking about the Mason Rudolph stuff, and like, how does that not become a, oh man, well, this defense, we're not going to regress to who we were. We're not going up against Aaron Rodgers anymore. This is Mason Rudolph. Let's fly around. Let's make tackles. Let's make him beat us and force 2 second half turnovers and get the hell out of here with a win. Like, the moment that Aaron Rodgers doesn't come out for the second half, and you realize you're going up against Mason Rudolph, that defense should have been salivating like crazy. They should have been so hungry to get back on that field and face Mason Rudolph. And it just didn't feel it like at all. It just felt so easy. And I don't know. I assume everyone is to blame. Players, coaches, like everything. Because this was supposed to be the, oh my God, we have to get this game. And you let Mason Rudolph just dump it off 12 of 16, dump it off 12 times and rack up a bunch of yards and points and enough to lead the Steelers to victory. They had no business doing that. When Mason came in, it was 10-9. He left the game, it was 34-12. That's another thing that should be impossible, and yet it happened.
The Steelers had 2 offensive possessions in the second half. They had 17 plays with Mason Rudolph before taking a knee to end the game. Those 17 plays went for 127 yards and 10 points. In between those, we had Joe Flacco's first interception, a Bengals field goal. The pick 6, the field goal, and then the Noah Fant touchdown. So it's not like there were a ton of opportunities there, but the Bengals also didn't get a stop as soon as Mason Rudolph came into the game. And that should have made things easier. You're right. But the Steelers were able to run the ball. The Bengals stopped tackling. They were already having tackling issues, I think. They got worse. And I was going to mention another one if we're talking about turning points that the Bengals did not take advantage of.
Yep.
the referee intervention aside, which we talked about earlier, after the Bengals called a timeout with 1:37 left in the first quarter or in the second quarter, with Steelers facing a 3rd and 4, the Bengals got pretty good pressure to Aaron Rodgers on that 3rd and 4.
Yep.
And then Aaron Rodgers escaped and scrambled for 8 yards. The Steelers would go on to draw a defensive pass interference penalty on the next play, commit an offensive pass interference on the following play, but then Myles Murphy falls into Aaron Rodgers' butt for a free 15 yards and a first down for the Steelers. And a couple plays later, Joseph Osai hits him in the helmet. Pittsburgh eventually scores a field goal. If instead you get that stop, you get the ball back, perhaps you steal some points before the half and get the ball back out of the half, and perhaps things go a little bit differently with Mason Rudolph in the game, maybe needing to chase instead of trying to defend a lead. Who knows? I mean, maybe things really go off the rails down the stretch anyway. Maybe Joe Flacco still throws a pick six. Who knows? But those are moments that the Bengals had opportunities they didn't take advantage of.
And that's obviously a big one, is the pick six. Just not seeing Duggar there throwing it. I mean, it completely changes it. You're in scoring range.
Yeah. To be fair, he did get hit. That affected the throw. He had a quick win from TJ Watt on the play. He had a quick win up the middle on that play, I think Jalen Rivers. So the pressure definitely affected that throw, but
sure.
Rough interception.
The other one is, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it's the Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, that's going to end up badly for the Bengals.
When you get a 15-yard penalty and the guy, so now Aaron Rodgers is out and now Jalen Ramsey is out, who's literally the identity of that secondary. Like clearly he's come in there and he's trying to embrace it and be a big part of what they do. And he's out. All of the stuff aside, who did what, all those things, throw it aside. I'm talking about football. That's a huge moment. And I don't think they picked up another first down. They had to settle for a field goal and they used 2 timeouts.
Yeah, it was worse than not getting another first down. They have to immediately take a timeout because they're trying to draw the Steelers off sides, and then they get the 15-yard penalty, and then they can't get a play, and they have to call a timeout. And I think they end up losing yards because they had some penalties. Yeah, I mean, after that, it was really bad.
Awful.
Oh, yeah, there was a sack and then a penalty. Yeah, so they did go backwards after the ejection.
So that could have been a moment too. And it wasn't. It was the opposite. It was, and then the Steelers calmly went down, I believe. You're right. They didn't have many possessions, but then they scored. So, yeah, it sucks because those are the moments you need to take advantage of. And they didn't. And you're right. It is going to end up bad for the Bengals because Fox 19, I think, has the best video of this. Austin just crushing it. I believe Austin's the one who posted it. But, just it's pretty clear what happened. Put it that way.
There were allegations after the game from Jalen Ramsey that Jamar Chase spit on him. There appears to be video evidence of this. If there is a precedent, and there is, Jalen Carter earlier this year, would not be shocked if there's a 1-game suspension coming for Jamar Chase. So insult to injury there, however you want to phrase it. Not something that Jamar Chase is going to be proud of, I think, but things were obviously heated between those guys the entire game, James.
Yeah. And I saw that people were kind of saying, oh, that's what happened. I don't know how anyone would have known that without having that kind of angle. Like I saw like grainy TV stuff and I was like, I can't tell anything. Yeah, you just can't tell. But I think hefty fine, but would not shock me if a suspension is coming. And by the way, I'm surprised that wasn't like video reviewed in the moment, because had they ejected both of those guys then I don't think Jamar would be suspended next week. Like I would completely rule it out. But now that he stayed in the game, which didn't end up mattering at all because they didn't take advantage of that moment, now it could cost them against New England next week.
I believe Carter was ejected from that game in the first quarter and then suspended the following week anyway.
Was he?
I'm not sure about that.
He was ejected in the first quarter. I didn't realize he was suspended in the following week.
I believe he got a 1-game suspension. He did not appeal, but I could be wrong. If you hear me typing, it's because I'm looking it up. He received a 1-game suspension. considers his ejection before the first play
Yeah.
to have served the suspension. So you're right. He did not serve an extra game of suspension. They counted that game as a suspension. So who knows how that would have worked out. But we'll obviously have eyes on that process. Kind of secondary. I mean, technically their playoff hopes aren't over, but realistically, they are. Jamar missing a game against the 9-2 Patriots isn't going to make that any easier.
Now what's going to be interesting is like how we view it versus how they view it, how they act and react. Like Mike Gesicki's getting close. Obviously, we know about Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Like they're going to try. Like Trey Hendrickson, we have more on him to dive into, I think. So there's a lot of, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if it means anything. I still think your mid-January vacation is safe, Jake, but overall, I do think there's going to be plenty of storylines and intrigue because of Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor and all of the things that go into the 2025 Bengals.
Yeah, like how drastic are changes that could potentially come this offseason? There are guys that even like I said this earlier, like even if they do everything that you're dreaming, ownership, that they could do this offseason, hire the coach of your choice. And if you want them to move on from Zach Taylor, hire the GM of your choice if you want them to move on from Duke Tobin. And this is a bigger conversation we'll get into another day, James. But even if they do all of those things, there's players on this roster that are going to still be on the roster next year. And so those guys are going to be guys that we're going to be watching as well as these storylines you're talking about, like Joe Burrow's return, other guys that are getting healthier, how Zach and this coaching staff handle the rest of the year, and how this ownership group handles another season that's got to be way off of their expectations and really doesn't show signs of life or hope. Like what are you really hoping for the rest of this way from the ownership perspective? Like what is there, like you're talking about how they see it, like what are they hoping to see the rest of the season versus, the best long-term case that potentially fans envision. So
they're probably hoping 7-0,
of course,
and
sneak into the playoffs.
It's just so unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's so unrealistic.
Well, we talked about it this week, right? The defense has kind of shown us who they are, worried about things falling off of the offense. Eventually those things come to fruition, but they still have 7 games to play. So we will, of course, continue to have you covered here as the Bengals continue to play football games.
Always.
We're not going anywhere. As part of the #1 sports podcast network out there, you'll find Locked On Bengals everywhere you get your podcasts, of course. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We're back with you for the rest of the week, of course. Until then, thanks for listening. Have a good one.